Welcome to our Dream to Rise podcast. This is Cynthia Concordia, your host. Hello, welcome to our Dream to Rise podcast. This is Cynthia Concordia, your host, and I am accompanied by a special guest who has been on a healing journey since 2015. Along that journey, she has been able to heal from self-hate and learn to create a life she loves. She is on a mission to work with women who are ready to learn how to make themselves a priority and still be able to give in some kind of loving, generous ways. So reminding women that their voice matters and the world needs them and they are loved. There is a big part of her mission. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our special guest, Sam Morrison Wilson. You're the founder and community host of Safe Heart Connections, right?
Yes. Welcome. Thank you for having me, Cynthia.
Welcome. Nice to have you at the Dream to Rise podcast. Okay.
Thank you.
Is everything fine with you? Where are you again? May I ask so that our listeners will know?
Yeah, I live in Texas. I've been here all my life and love it here. I think about if I could move anywhere in the world, and I really have a hard time coming up with a different place because I truly love where I'm at, which is a nice thing, a nice issue to have.
And you mentioned a while ago, it's also cold in Texas, right?
It's cold today here in February, which we only have a few cold days, and it's really not even that cold. I think it's in the 50s. But a few days ago, it was like in the 90s. So we have the
sudden change, like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster.
Okay, at least you are able to experience the cold weather. It's also nice to have some cold weather, right?
Little bit, tiny bits.
Really? Okay, let us start. I would just like to ask you to tell us something about yourself that brought you to where you are right now.
I got out of an abusive marriage in 2015, and I had been married and divorced multiple times before that. Each time the situation got worse and worse and ultimately ended up in an abusive situation. And I didn't realize I was recreating this pattern and going through this loop over and over again until I was ready to heal from it. And March 8th of 2015 is the day that I drew the line in the sand and said, this is not going to continue. I had no idea what healing looked like. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know what I was really dealing with at that moment in me, but I knew that the one thing that was constant in all these situations was me. And so that I somehow God showed me that if I wanted to have a different life, I could have one. I just had to make a different choice. And now I get to help women do the same thing. And it's so exciting to go from where I was to where I am now. It was not easy, but it was so worth it.
Oh, yes. You mentioned about abused by your husband. And then do you have kids?
So I have 2 kids. They are not by him, though. And so we didn't have any kids together. We got married. We met in March of 2011. We got married in December of 2011. By 2012, he had moved me away, not that far, but probably 30, 40 miles from where we had been living with all my support system. And I didn't realize that that was the first step. The isolation was the first step of getting me out of my normal pattern to be able to start doing what he was going to do. And within a month or so of moving is when he started what I say he would flip out, the rage that he would have. And it happened. It was like a light switch had been flipped off. Everything was so good. And then a light switch was flipped off and there was nothing I could do to turn it back on. So my son was at the house with me. He was in high school. During that time, my daughter was already grown and moved out.
So when you moved, your son was with you as well.
He was. Yeah, he was. And he handled it pretty well. Looking back, I recognize that it's almost a miracle that my son didn't do something before I left, like to stand up and say no, right? Because he was, my ex-husband didn't ever do anything physically to him, to my son, but the emotional stuff, the walking on eggshells, the not ever knowing what kind of situation you're going to be walking into was hard. And, I've been out of that for 10 years now. I've made my amends to my son, and he's still upset with me. He loves me. We have a really good relationship, but he's still mad at me on some level because towards the end of the relationship, my son was a senior in high school, and we had moved so much through all of his years that I really wanted him to finish school with the group of people he had been with for the last couple of years. And so I had him move in with a friend of his for the last couple of months of school to keep him safe from my ex-husband, but I stayed. He's mad that I protected him, but I didn't leave and protect myself. And I had reasons for that. There was reasons I did what I did, but looking back, there was absolutely no reason for me to stay. And if there was a woman in that situation, I would say you don't have to get divorced. I'm not a proponent for divorce. I'm a proponent for safety. Get yourself to a safe place and then figure out your next steps. And if any woman was in the situation I was in, I would have said, leave, get some help, and then decide what to do next.
So you were physically abused.
I wasn't at first. It was very much when he would rage, I would be standing next to him in a room with him, a small space, and he would destroy everything around me. He was very strong and it was almost like the Hulk, the character of the Hulk.
Uh-huh.
It was like he would Hulk out and destroy everything. And I used to compare him to the Hulk. But one of my friends told me after I got out, he's like, he wasn't like the Hulk because the Hulk would have never hurt his girl.
Yeah.
So that's a bad example. But once I filed for divorce, I stayed. I owned a business and I was waiting on some stuff to happen to where I could leave, and I needed him to sign a document.
Uh-huh.
And if I left, I felt like he would never sign the document and it would be an ongoing battle. So my decision was to stay until he signed that document. Well, after I filed for divorce, but before he signed the document, my son had already moved out and it was just me and him at the house now. And I was living in a different room. And he would come in the room at night and do things that I was not okay with. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I wanted to report it to the police.
Yes, I was about to ask you that.
But I didn't, because I didn't think anybody would believe me. Because who files rape charges on their husband? Well, somebody that's being abused. And I didn't report it. I do wish I had. Looking back, I'm writing a book right now. It's going to be published on March 8th this year. And part of that process for me has been so healing to know that I did the best that I could in the situation that I was in. And I do wish I had reported it, because then at least somebody else would have known at that time. And if a woman ever got with him again, if she pulled the record, at least she would know. But most women, let's be honest, we don't go pull criminal background reports for the men we're dating, because our eyes are focused on all the good, and we've got all this lovey-dovey and, oh, he's the best. And maybe he did that before, but he's not going to do that to me. Yeah. Oh, but he will. Oh, but he will. Uh-huh. And so, I was lucky to get out alive, and
May I ask up to what extent because you mentioned you were lucky to leave him alive, up to what extent uh, did he threaten you or yes,
The
physically?
police, yeah. So the police had told me multiple times. I had called them multiple times, and they told me that in all the years of in their experience, that they had never seen something as bad as what they saw in our home with all the destruction that
Oh,
didn't eventually lead to someone being killed. Unless there was something major that happened that changed everything, that somebody got help or figured it out, that it always ended up with them coming back and someone was dead.
uh-huh. Did he admit that he was abusing you? Never, no? Because in my situation, I initiated the call, reported, and then 10 years after, when he was hitting my son, it was my daughter who initiated the call. And
Yeah.
son even requested for a 2-year permanent restraining order.
And
That
the people that in our life that met him, they thought he was the nicest person. Oh, it was like he's just the best. And then I would tell people, like I told a friend, and she's like, well, maybe if you just keep your house more calm or peaceful, or don't do this. And I'm like,
uh-huh.
there's nothing I can do or not do that's going to make him flip out. One
Uh,
time my daughter ran over the water hose that he left in the driveway and he flipped out.
see,
So I can't control that. That's not my fault. What
uh-huh.
was my fault was I allowed it to continue and I stayed. But there's nothing I could do
And still,
that could have made it better.
I could still remember I was still defending my husband to my
Oh,
children, and
yeah.
and that was a bad move because I was in denial. No, he was doing this because probably I provoked him. Probably
Yeah.
it was my fault. Everything was our fault. But not knowing that that's already a sign of domestic abuse, the victim of
Yes.
domestic abuse.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got out.
Yes, and I'm glad that my daughter helped me. She graduated from high school. My son was still turning first year high school. So it had a big impact on the children as well.
Sure.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
it up to, well, he passed away. He passed away, and after 4 months after his restraining order, he was able to attend the graduation of my children. But the worst part was his family blamed us for his death because of the restraining order. And even the common friends blocked us off because they said that he was a nice uh, person.
Yeah.
I was the villain.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you just wouldn't know. You would
Yeah.
have no idea. And part of the problem is in those situations, we as women are not speaking up. We're not using our voice.
Yeah.
In the middle of one of the times where he was flipping out or raging or destroying everything in the room, whatever you want to say, we had been taking care of my mom and stepdad's dog because they were moving and having a house built and they were having to stay in a hotel for a couple of months. And so we were keeping their dog at our place. And he decided that he didn't want to have the dog anymore. And he was going to open the gate and let their dog out so it could
Yeah.
be killed on the road, is what
Oh,
he said.
mom.
And so I called my mom saying, I need you to get one of my siblings to come pick up Sadie, the dog. And I, on some level, I wish I hadn't called her because in that moment she heard the fear and the terror and my voice, and she could hear him screaming in the background. She could hear all the chaos. But on the other hand, finally somebody knew what I was going through, right? That it wasn't just me. I wasn't making this up. This was the reality of it. And so we think it's our fault. Like you said, you were blaming yourself. We think it's our fault. And so we better not talk about it, or there's something to be ashamed of, and it's just not true. If a woman, and this happens to men too, women abuse men as well. It's not as common, but it does happen. So if someone's in an abusive situation, or you're not sure if you're in an abusive situation and you want to go talk to one of your best friends about what's happening in your marriage, and you feel ashamed, or you feel like, oh, I better not say that because of XYZ, that's probably a pretty good sign that you're in a bad place. Because if you weren't embarrassed to talk about it, it would probably be okay.
Exactly. You mentioned that you did not share your problems with your family, right? Same with me.
Yeah.
What made you keep that silence, or kept quiet?
I had been married and divorced multiple times, and I thought, how the heck is this happening to me? This can't be happening again. And I had never been in an abusive situation, but it's like, how did this happen? And so I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I thought that they were going to be like, well, maybe if you could stay single, like all the things in their brain about all the judgment. But all they wanted from me was love and kindness, and they wanted me to be safe. My dad is a pastor at a church. He wasn't a pastor when I was a kid, but he has been for the last 15 or 20 years. And when your dad, who's a pastor, is telling you get out, once he knew what was happening, there's something there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me, I never shared because I was taught and raised that, okay, once you made a vow in your marriage that you will stick with him through thick and thin. And for us in the Philippines, there's no divorce. So we try to keep the marriage work. But then when my it was only then, I've been married for 23 years, and it was only the last restraining order they found out what's happening, and that was already on the 23rd year, because
Wow.
I told them that I married this guy, I now have a family, and we will solve the problem, not knowing that it was already impacting my children.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so crazy enough, I still believe in marriage, and I believe that there are good men out there. There are people that want the same kind of things that I want. And luckily, a few years later, I actually got remarried in 2023.
Nice.
Very happily remarried. He puts up with my quirkiness, and I'm definitely more eccentric and eclectic than he is. He's more of a traditional cowboy in Texas, and we just fit together really well. He loves me well, and he encourages me to show up in the world the way I'm supposed to. And I love it.
Put down the wall, because I'm sure you created that wall, no, because of fear. So
Yes.
how are you able to put down that wall?
I've done a lot of healing work on understanding who I am now, who God created me to be, what I want, what my core values are. And then I met a relationship coach, and I started working with them, and I recognized that the way I had been having that wall put up wasn't just from this past relationship. It really was my whole life. My parents got divorced when I was 7. and they both loved me really well. They both remarried really quickly. And I ended up being raised with two sets of parents, mom and stepdad, and dad and stepmom. And my life wasn't bad. And there's some things that just happened to me because of the divorce. I know was part of it. That I was raised to be a strong, independent woman who didn't need anybody. And I was taking care of myself from a very young age. And I was attracting little boys, a man, someone, not just a person that's born male, but a man, not a boy. Man shows up differently, and a man isn't going to date another man typically. And I understand that there are gay people, and that's not what I'm saying. But a traditional man is not going to date another man. He's going to want a woman. Mm-hmm. And I was showing up very, very masculine in a boss babe kind of way, where I'm like, I acted like a dude in my relationships. Once I learned how to actually allow my femininity to come through, and my playfulness and my quirkiness, then I was able to attract a man that would love me and not take from me. And so being able to learn who I was as a woman was a really important thing. And it has nothing to do with sexuality. It's about me being created in a certain way. And I'd always thought men just wanted me for sex, because that's what I allowed. But that's not it. Men want partners. A real man wants a partner and someone to build something with and to create a legacy with, and not have just a little play toy. And so this healing journey I've been on, and I'm still on it. I've got 10 years in, but I really believe God is still uncovering things in me to allow me to be more and more of who He created me to be.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. At least you were able to take some action steps, no? And I agree. Well, what I've heard from other guys, that they prefer feminine, female, yeah, who promotes femininity rather than mask. But it seems that you experienced that you were like that because of what happened to you. And
yes,
you learn to become independent, become strong for yourself, for your family, and for your children.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with who I am as being independent and strong. I can still be those things. But when it comes to showing up with my partner, I show up in a different way. And so I own two businesses. One is a virtual admin company. And then I have my women's community, Safe Heart Connections, where I help women that are learning to create a life they love, like you said on the intro. And when I'm doing work stuff, I'm in work mode, producing mode. That's very masculine. So I try really hard when I'm around my husband to not work.
Yes.
We live in a small space. We downsized and we live in an RV and we love it. But I rented this office where I can come do work and do calls, so that when I'm in work mode, I'm not there. And when I'm at home with him, I can be my feminine, womanly, girly girl and not have to be responsible for all the things. And I love it. It's not about changing who I am. It's about being who I need to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And when I'm discovering your self-discovery that, hey, this could help my marriage. And then
it does.
Adjustments. Yes.
Yeah. And it's little things. He likes my braids, that when I braid my hair, he likes my braids, and I like my braids too. And my hair, I cut my hair after our wedding because it was really, really long. And my hair is finally long enough to do the braids again. So I'm wearing them in braids. And he's like, I like the braids. I'm like, I know. And so it's just fun. It's just fun things like that.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, and now, when was that time when you said that enough is enough? When was that turning point?
March 8th of 2015, so almost 10 years ago.
That was when you filed the divorce.
The divorce in April. Yeah, but I drew the line. I wrote in my journal, I wrote, I'm drawing a line in the sand that this is not going to continue.
But what
Uh,
what triggered you to initiate that?
what triggered that? My ex-husband's, well, what triggered it was we lived in a rural area in south of Dallas, and our home was having some plumbing problems.
Uh-huh.
I was at a business event about an hour and a half away, and my husband at the time called me, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come home to help me with this plumbing stuff."
Uh-huh.
Not a plumber. And I didn't have a car. I rode with some colleagues, and I said, I'll be home like at whatever time, 3:00 or 3:30. But I can't help you. I can sit with you, but I can't fix the plumbing thing. And I said, I'll be glad to sit out there with you. And he's like, well, I'll just go get Alex, my son, from work. I said, do not go get Alex. And about 20 minutes later, my son called and said, did you know he was coming to get me? And I said, no. And then I hear him, my ex, screaming in the background, a bunch of jostling noise. He pushed my son out of the vehicle on the side of the road and left him there.
What? Oh, my. Oh, my.
And I was like, you can mess around with me. I'm an adult, and if I want to take it, that's fine. You put my child in danger? No, thank you. I'm tapping out. And
I think that's the thing, no? What triggered me also was because of the children. Enough is enough because the children are being impacted by his bad behavior. And how they view life was very different.
Very, very different.
Self-worth, low self-esteem, no confidence, and they didn't do well in school.
It's hard. It's really hard. So at that time, before that had happened, I mentioned how my daughter had run over the water hose in the driveway. Well, she already had my oldest grandson is 11, and at that point he was a baby. And Sarah and Jonah is my grandson's name, and Sarah's my daughter, and they were staying at our house for a little while. And because of how he started acting out, I had to make them leave really quickly because I didn't want the baby there. So I got them to leave. And keep in mind, he was just a little baby, a few months old. And after I had got divorced, Sarah happened to run into him at a grocery store. And Jonah, who was now just over a year old, saw him. And Jonah is normally like this loving, happy baby, connecting with everybody. Sarah said even Jonah went back and pulled back, like, nope. No, like he knew there was something wrong. And he probably remembered that. And so, do I wish I hadn't put my kids through all this stuff? 100%. I don't have very many regrets in life, but that is one I wish I could change. But what they get to see now is a woman that's been willing to do the work, to learn who she is, and be able to help myself in a way that I couldn't before. I look back on that woman and I'm like, she was doing the best that she could, right? I was doing the best that I could. But now I know different and I can do different. And to hear my 27-year-old son say he has boundaries,
now,
and I'm like,
see it.
And to hear my daughter, like my dad is amazing with my daughter and the grandkids and stuff. He does so much for them. And one time he has a couple of dogs and he asks my daughter to pet sit for him when he goes out of town. It's very common. She does it all the time. Well, a few months ago, he asked her to do that. And it was a time that my husband and I were keeping the boys for her so she could have a weekend to herself. And I was so proud. She said, she calls him grandfather. Grandfather, I I'm just not able to do that this time because mom's going to have the boys and I'm just going to take some time to myself. For her to be able to say no to him, a person of authority who was always helping her, and she was kind to him, and she's like, but she was able to say no. Oh, it's so good to see that my kids are doing different than I would have done.
Yes, and that's what I've observed also with my kids. My daughter will always tell me, Mom, why do you have to please everyone? You should not please everyone. Stop pleasing everyone because you don't believe in yourself. So I'm now getting advices from my children. And
I love it.
I've learned so much from them. I've learned so much. Wonderful, wonderful. See, if it impacts our children, no matter what, we will do our best to stop it and then move forward. So what are your next goals for the next 12 months based on for your company, is this an organization, right?
Yeah. So yeah. The next 12 months, I'm actually releasing my book on March 8th, 2025. So it will be 10 years. That's a big deal. I'm going to be promoting that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just continuing to share with women that they're not alone. If they want to create a life they love, they can, one choice at a time. And I make my community, the base of the community is free. So any woman that wants to join, no matter where they are financially, it's okay. Come on in. There are some paid things that they can do and different events to attend and courses and stuff. But there are women that have been with me for years. They have never paid me a penny.
So are these abused women?
Some of them are, not all of them. What I've learned is that we all, even if we haven't been abused, we know somebody that has, or we're dealing with our kids are in trouble with drugs or school, or we lost a parent, or there's some other thing. And so what I know is the most of the women in my community are women that have been conditioned to be givers all their life. They give, and they don't know how to put themselves first. And so my goal is to teach them how to create a life they love, starting with themselves. Because ladies, if you want to change the world, you have to start with you. And when you do that, then you have a base of community around you. You're able to know who you are. You're able to trust yourself and make decisions that support who you are. And it's just a beautiful place.
And remember, be with a group that would support you, who are aligned to your values, who will be there to push your limits so you may discover your potential. And it's not about, it's about really growing, letting you shine, letting you rise and shine. Nothing is impossible. And you're doing an amazing job, Sam, and I'm so happy that you're helping others. This is our mission now. See,
mine too.
Yes, and in some way, in our own little ways, at least we are able to save a soul. And when
just to give back.
Yes, and then this will create a ripple effect, and that's what I want to happen as well.
Thank you.
I'm glad. And what simple, again, I think you've mentioned already your simple advice to the listeners, right?
There's a couple of things. My thing would be, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, if I were to create a life I love, it would look like this. And your life doesn't look like this right now, just take one step to one choice, one thing. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but one thing that you can do to show yourself kindness, love, grace, compassion, to treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love, like your best friend. And do that, and just do that one time, and then do it another time, and then do it another time. And each choice you make will help you create the life that you want to live.
Do you have any advice? What tool should they take?
Uh,
Because me, I focus on my health and well-being before
yes.
I am
Yep.
able to really
If I were to start over with $0, no money at all, what I would start with is gratitude, because you can't have gratitude and fear at the same time. And what you focus on, you will get more of. All the women that join Safe Heart Connections get access to what I call the 7-minute gratitude blueprint. Basically, I'll tell you what it is. Ladies, if you're watching, you want to join, you can come and get it. But I'll tell you what it is. So if you want to write it down, is basically starting your morning with gratitude, 3 things you're thankful for, and your top 3 tasks for the day, to where you set your day up for success. And then at the end of the day, you write down your 3 wins for the day and what you think your wins are going to be for the next day. Because when you close the day out focusing on gratitude and wins, it sets your brain just ruminates on that all night while you're sleeping. You wake up ready to go, energized, and then you start your day with gratitude, focus on what you want to get done, and it's amazing.
I also focus on gratitude, because when you, especially me, I always go out, take a walk, and then be with nature. I could feel that blessings that I am receiving from God, and when I am with someone or with people who are happy, then again I'm grateful to have friends who are there to support.
Yeah.
So you feel
Yeah.
fuller, you feel freer, you feel abundant when you focus on what you're grateful for. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
so how could they connect again with you, Sam?
They can go to safeheartconnections.com. And when they look at the information there, it's going to tell them that they can request the free 7-minute gratitude blueprint, which will take them into the community. We do weekly affirmations, monthly check-ins, and lots of things. And if they're not ready to do that, on YouTube, they can type Safe Heart Connections or my name, and it'll pop up with all kinds of goodies.
Again, her name is Sam Morrison Wilson. Okay, don't forget. Okay, thank you so much, Sam, for being here with us. And it was a great discussion, a great the insights you've shared most will surely add value to the listeners and inspire them that, hey, you don't need to be quiet. Why open up and then express your feelings and emotion? You know, you do it in a more matured way, in a responsible way, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
It's the manner of how you express yourself. So, again, thank you, Sam, and it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Cynthia. It was nice to be with you.
Same here. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and wait for our next episode. Have a blessed day to all. Bye.